3 red laser dots were jittering across my kitchen wall, shaking like tiny red nerves, while a whole line of rifles pointed straight through my bay window. And there was my wife, calm as a monk, stirring her tea in a loose robe like this was just another Tuesday. 10 seconds later, those same officers who were ready to breach my house lowered their weapons, stepped forward, and saluted her. And that was the moment I realized this entire nightmare started, because my wife refused to show her ID to our HOA president. I'm not exaggerating, I wish I were. But this is exactly how my quiet suburban life flipped into something straight out of a Tom Clancy novel, because one HOA Karen decided she was the sheriff, the FBI, and the Department of Homeland Security wrapped into one overly ambitious suburban tyrant. My name is Gavin Holbrook, 39 years old, software consultant, part-time grill enthusiast, full-time suburban peace lover. My wife Anna and I had lived in Cypress Hollow for 8 months when all of this exploded. And before everything went insane, I genuinely believed Cypress Hollow was going to be the calm, leafy, HOA-managed dream we'd been promised in the glossy brochure. Safe streets, quiet neighbors, clean sidewalks. The kind of place where you hear birds, not arguments. But then, there was her. Teresa Blanchard, HOA president, clipboard warrior, a stormtrooper with a bob cut and a power complex so intense it probably had its own gravitational pull. Her first strike wasn't even dramatic, just a post-it note slapped on our front door at 6 a.m., a flimsy yellow square that basically said, "Guests must register at the gate, no exceptions." Except my wife wasn't a guest. She lived here, slept in the same bed as me, shared the mortgage, ate the same dry HOA-approved turkey sandwiches. You get the idea. But Teresa stood there that morning, hands on hips, lips pursed, eyes squinting like she was analyzing a forged passport, insisting she had never seen this woman before. Like my wife was some kind of infiltrator sneaking into a book club meeting. And honestly, maybe I should have taken that as a sign of what was coming. But back then, I was still naive enough to think, hey, it's a misunderstanding. We're neighbors, adults, rational people. Yeah, no, not even close. Within a week, things escalated faster than a drone shot in an action movie. We got our first violation, unauthorized occupancy. Then another, noise disturbance. To be clear, my wife was doing silent yoga on our balcony. The loudest thing happening was the wind. A neighbor eventually came over looking like he was sneaking state secrets across enemy lines and whispered that Teresa had ordered people to photograph my wife's license plate at different times of the day for an ongoing investigation. Investigation into what fitness, grocery shopping, breathing. I installed a Ring camera after that just to see what was going on. And I swear on my mortgage the footage showed Teresa creeping up to our flower bed with a ruler to measure the tulip height, because apparently tulips over 6 inches tall are a threat to national security. She started dropping passive-aggressive pamphlets at our doorstep every morning, titles like Foreign Nationals and Community Safety. Undocumented Residents, a Homeowner's Guide. I mean, who even prints stuff like that? Who wakes up and thinks, yes, I will terrorize my neighbors with pamphlets today? I tried ignoring her. I really did. My wife found it funny at first. She'd hold up a pamphlet, laugh, and toss it in the recycling bin. She's trying to get inside our heads, Anna said, sipping her tea like she was reviewing a military intel briefing. We're fine. But I wasn't fine. Not really. And things were about to get much, much worse. One afternoon, while we were eating dinner, Teresa knocked to inform us our porch light was 3 lumens too bright. 3, not 2, not 4, 3. Then came the neighborhood wellness checks. 2 HOA board members, grown adults, walking past our home, slowly stopping to take pictures of our garbage cans like they were spying on a rare bird. I confronted them. They smiled like mannequins and kept walking. But the final straw, the moment I realized we were no longer dealing with mild suburban weirdness, was the morning I spotted a blinking red light in the oak tree outside our house. Teresa had installed a trail camera angled directly at our front door, claiming it was for wildlife. Right, because the deer needed headshots. I climbed the tree, ripped the camera off, and dropped it at her doorstep. She called the cops and reported that I'd stolen scientific equipment. That's when my wife, who has survived 3 military deployments, finally said, "She's trying to intimidate us into leaving, but she has no idea who she's dealing with." I should have listened. I should have realized this wasn't going to stay HOA problem level stupid, because the day everything imploded, it started with my wife going for her usual morning jog. According to Anna, she'd barely stepped onto the sidewalk when Teresa jumped out clipboard in hand, blocking her path like a bouncer at a nightclub. "Show me your ID," she demanded. Anna looked at her deadpan move. Teresa started counting. "I'm calling authorities in 5 seconds if you do not comply." Anna didn't move. So Teresa whipped out her phone, dialed 911, and told the most dramatic, Oscar-worthy lie I have ever heard in my life. She described my wife as some dangerous armed foreign military-trained intruder who refused to identify herself and might become violent if cornered. My wife was wearing pink running shorts and a tank top with a cartoon cat on it. Her weapons were a water bottle and house keys. But the key words Teresa used, armed military refusing ID, triggered a high-priority police response. And suddenly my quiet street was filled with sirens, tires, screeching, radios crackling, and officers running toward my house like a raid was underway. I stepped outside wearing nothing but gym shorts and Crocs, and I swear you haven't known true fear until you're staring at a rifle barrel in your own driveway. "Step outside with your hands visible," I kept repeating. "It's a misunderstanding. My wife lives here. She's not a threat." But nobody was listening. They were too busy taking positions, forming a perimeter, shouting orders. And in that moment, I broke. I felt something inside me crack open, because it hit me that Teresa had manipulated everything so expertly that even the police, a whole SWAT team, believed her. I remember standing there thinking, maybe I should have tried harder to stop this earlier. Maybe I should have pushed back. Maybe this is partly my fault. And for a second, just a small, terrifying second, I wondered if we should have just moved away. But then everything changed. One sniper had a clear line of sight to Anna, who was just standing in the yard, hands up, confused as hell. I saw his expression shift, first confusion, then shock, then something like respect. He clicked his radio. "Stand down. Repeat, stand down." That's Echo Spectre. Echo Spectre. That was my wife. Suddenly, rifles lowered. Helmets came off. The atmosphere flipped like a switch. Several officers straight up saluted her. One looked like he was about to cry. Another asked almost in a whisper, "Ma'am, may I shake your hand?" They explained everything right there on my lawn, how Anna's identity was flagged in national law enforcement systems, not as a threat, but as someone who had saved countless American lives. Someone who had dismantled networks overseas. Someone they were trained to protect, not arrest. And there in the middle of this surreal scene stood Teresa Blanchard, phone-raised recording jaw dangling like a garage door stuck halfway open. Her entire fantasy, where she was the supreme authority of Cypress Hollow, crumbled in real time. "Why aren't you arresting her?" she finally shrieked. 2 officers turned toward her. "Ma'am, we need to ask you some questions about filing a false report and impersonating a security official." Her phone slipped out of her hand and hit the sidewalk. Within hours, things unraveled faster than a cheap sweater. Federal agents arrived. They confiscated Teresa's computer. What they found, detailed profiles on South 47 residents, daily schedules, photos from telephoto lenses, fake security badges she'd photoshopped, reports she'd filed under a fake HOA security email she'd made herself. They called her a one-woman surveillance state operating out of a living room. Of course, when the HOA realized they were about to be sued into dust, they held an emergency meeting. Teresa was expelled from the board unanimously. The board members resigned in a panic within 48 hours. The HOA's insurance carrier threatened to drop them if she stayed in any position of influence. Teresa was hit with charges: harassment, stalking, impersonating a federal officer, filing false reports, and unauthorized drone usage because, oh yeah, she'd been flying a drone over people's yards too. At her sentencing, she yelled, "This is all because she wouldn't show her ID." The judge slammed the gavel. 6 months in county jail, $5,000 fine, case closed. And that That was the moment I finally exhaled. No cheering, no victory dance, no celebration, just silent relief. A weight lifting, a storm ending. Because in the suburbs, the scariest threat isn't crime. It's someone who thinks their clipboard gives them more power than the law. And that's the lesson: never underestimate how far a petty tyrant will go until they meet someone who won't break.